So how many of you had one of these slide into your DMs recently? 皆さんこんにちは、ケミュシチャンネルのロレッタです。今日はとても重要なお知らせがあります。About 2 months ago, I took the 日本語能力試験, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, or the JLPT. The JLPT is kind of treated like the most official way to judge how good your Japanese is as a foreigner. It's a certification for school and for jobs. Many of you just got your results on said test, and many of you are actually signing up for the new December round of this year. So today's video is all about the JLPT. Anyone who watches my Instagram stories already has backstage access to the day I took the test, what it looked like, and what my result actually was. And you can probably judge by the title, but this is my result. I passed! 日本語能力試験1級レベル15年間の命をかけたけど1級合格したよ Finally! Seriously, dude, that took so much. Congratulations to everyone who took the JLPT. This week is the last week to sign up for the JLPT, so I know a lot of you are looking at it wondering if maybe you should take it too. So for that reason, today's video is all about the JLPT, 日本語能力試験, how I passed the N1 level, and tips on how not to fail it. So what is this JLPT and what should you expect when you take it? It's completely multiple choice. There is no writing on the test and there is no speaking on the test. You can take it in many major cities. Last year alone, over 1 million people across the world signed up to take the test, but somehow only 887,380 people actually took it. What happened to the other 100? Just kidding. There are 5 levels, with number 5 being the bottom. It's considered conversational basic Japanese, all the way up through intermediate, and then up to N2, which is considered basic business or professional level Japanese, and then the N1, which is kind of like the pinnacle. You should be able to read a newspaper without any help, you know, get through any job, etc. with minimal difficulty. Even though the N1 is considered the highest, you can tell a lot of people focused on preparing for with the N3 and actually taking the N2 level to get their certifications for job, work, etc. If you want to pass the JLPT exam specifically, my first tip to you is to get a JLPT study book. Kanzen Master 日本語能力試験文法問題対策. This one is a grammar book. This one is Kanzen Master 日本語能力試験1級レベル, a kanji book, the workbook for the Japanese language proficiency test, bunpo. This is Speed Master. So I specifically use the Kanzen Master books and also the Speed Master books. And this one as well, the N1 kanji book, it looks like this. I'll put all the links in the ISBN numbers below. Out of all of these books, I used these two the most. The Speed Master grammar book and the N1 kanji book. Things like the Genki textbooks, Duolingo, Aino, and other cutesy apps that I've recommended. They are great for supplementing your Japanese studies or to learn Japanese in general, but specifically for the JLPT, put all of those aside and focus on JLPT resources and books. You'll realize you'll need the JLPT to prove your professional Japanese, but it doesn't really tell you anything else about how good your Japanese really is. I remember like 5 years ago I was doing all this professional work using proficient business Japanese. I mean, I could say crazy things like, さて、経済ニュースです。第4四半期においては売上高が 30% 伸びたが人件費が増加したため2017年度が赤字になる見込みだった発表されました。I remember I took this one job. I was N2 level business Japanese, hired as a tour guide for these like elementary, middle school level Japanese kids who are visiting Virginia. I was their tour guide and yet I couldn't remember the word for principal. I was like, この人は学長です。この右側を見るとちょうど伝統的なランプ What's the word for an outlet? I need to charge my phone! JLPT proficient, but I couldn't even have a basic conversation with kids. It's one of those kind of necessary evils that you have to study for and you have to memorize for, so we do it anyways. Moral of the story is you can use all of your other materials to get better at Japanese later, but when you're studying for the JLPT, use any kind of book that has JLPT written on the actual book itself. My other tip to you is that it is very important to use practice tests. There are also free examples online, specifically on the official JLPT website. If you look on the website, you can click sample questions, and then there's one section at the bottom that has these cute little like sample questions so you can kind of gauge which level you should even try for. This little cutesy blue-green teal section, the questions are close to the level, but I found that they were much harder than what you actually need to know for the test, so it's a little bit intimidating. If you click on sample questions on the top and then you go to the left side and there's new Japanese language proficiency test sample questions, if you click that, then you can find sample workbooks, sample questions, actual test and answer sheets, audio samples, the scripts to the audio, which is particularly valuable, as well as the answers, so you can actually test yourself with the real format of the JLPT and test your answers in a realistic way. I actually didn't study all that much for the N1 level because the way that my school and my homework assignments are here in Japan, I actually do so much business and professional level Japanese that it was all just kind of like review every day, all day long anyways. But what I did do is the week before the exam, I read through this N1 Kanji book, and I also read through this Bunpo book. The other Kanzen Master books, they have explanations and they go into each grammar point, but I found it was a little bit too wordy. Like, I just needed a list of all of the grammar and all of the kanji that would be on the test. That's kind of like what these two books were. I remember the day of the test, I read through this kanji book, and one of the questions in the kanji section specifically was pulled from this book, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm really glad that I read through this book. But in general, there were only 6 kanji questions in the entire test, so I don't know if it's worth paying for an entire book for 6 questions. Specifically, I think this book was my favorite, the N1 Bunpo book, only because the test really heavily focuses on grammar, reading, sentence structure, and listening. What to expect on the day of the test. All of the tests have Gengo Chishiki, which goes over moji, or characters, specifically kanji, vocabulary. This includes kanji, but it can also include automatopoeia, bunpo, the grammar sections. For example, they break up a sentence into 5 different parts and scramble them out of order. You have to put these 5 parts back into order, and then the question will ask you what should be number 3 in that order. There is also a dokkai section, or reading comprehension, especially on the N2 and the N1 levels. There is a page to a page and a half for each one of those questions. I feel like there are about 6 or so. Be used to reading Japanese, so study reading passages, but specifically, make sure you read the questions first. And then everyone's favorite chokai section. The listening section is the one part where you are going to be completely surprised if you have never taken a JLPT before. If you were to take a practice test on anything for the JLPT, you have to do it for listening. The format of the listening section is so easy to trip up on if you've never done it before. So the first part of the reading is very straightforward. They give you a moment to read through the questions and then listen to the listening prompt and then answer the questions that you've already seen based on what you heard. Then there's another set of questions where it's kind of like, what sounds most natural? The first person will start saying something like, Takeshi-san, この資料間違ってますよ. A, B, or C. What is the most appropriate way to respond to that? For example, A. ありがとうございます。今度も同じことやりますね. B. あ、そうですか。じゃあ次のことも任せますね. Or 3. そうですか。じゃあもう一回書き直しますね. They don't even give you the multiple choice answers, you just have to hear it after. So it's really helpful if you write 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and make notes of what you think might be the answer, what you know is not the answer, and you want to, as you're going through the questions, make note, write X's on like, I absolutely know it's not this, or question mark if maybe this is the answer, or circle if you know. You're probably going to be so frazzled that you forget what the questions or what the answers even were as you're listening to it, so make a lot of notes. And then it gets difficult. The final page, when you turn to the final page, it is completely blank. These last few questions, when they're blank, it is always the same format. So here's what you're going to do. Here's what's going to help you. When you turn the page and it's blank, take your pencil and write a big plus sign, like a big tic-tac-toe, and divide the page into 4 sections. This specifically on the N2 and the N1 levels, they're going to just talk for a few minutes and they're going to talk about 4 different things. Maybe the names of 4 different mountains or the names of 4 different drinks. And you have no idea what the question is going to be until they've given you a million different details for 4 different things. Just make a list. What is number 1 called? What is 2, 3, and 4? Make their title, and then anytime they say anything about it, make a note. One of the speakers will say, but you know, honestly, I thought I wanted something cheap, but I realized that I preferred something that's a little bit cuter. But maybe on Tuesday, I have my paycheck coming in, so I'll want the expensive one. And then the guy will say, all right, so we'll buy it on Wednesday then. Boop! Which one did they buy? And you're like, what? Like, they don't concretely name what they're talking about, and they don't concretely name what the question is. By the time you figure that out, it's like, boop, next question. This is where it's really easy to fail the test. If you see mondai and a blank piece of paper, write a tic-tac-toe 4-quadrant board, fill in the answers, and, you know, pray that you took a listening practice test because it's going to be difficult. So that's where the test ends, but I wanted to add in some very specific tips on how not to fail. There are very easy ways to fail the test. The first one is to take the test for the first time. For the majority of people, the first time you take your test, you're probably not going to pass it. If you're not used to it, you're just going to either run out of time or not be sure and just miss a lot of opportunities to get the right answer. If you're taking the N1, or for any level, it really helps to take the level below before you take your goal level because it just gets you used to the format. Make sure you take practice tests specifically for the listening section. Another tip, this is very basic. Remember this guy? Your cell phone? Forget about it. What you really need for this test is a wristwatch. Completely non-digital wristwatch that you can put down on your desk. They tape over the clocks in the room so that you can't see them. I don't know how you're supposed to deduct answers from the clock, so make sure you have a wristwatch so you can manage your own time and not run out of time and fail just because of that. The most basic but the most true is don't forget a pencil. Make sure you have a watch, make sure you have a pencil, make sure you've taken practice listening tests, and make sure this isn't the first time you're taking it. These are simple ways to fail and just throw away all of your hard work. Don't do that. So yeah, that's basically it. It's a lot of uncomfortable but very necessary memorizing. But remember, it's not that big a deal. If you're curious and you want to try it and you have the money for it, just take it. Just give it a try. If you look on the website, there are these fun statistics. Like last year, only 8.6 people took the test because they needed a job in Japan. That's a really low number. But the largest majority, 35% of people who took the JLPT last year, reported that the only reason they took it was to gauge their own level for their own personal reasons. Judging by the timing of this video, we only have a few days left. The application deadline is actually September 26th at 5 p.m. Happy birthday, Lincoln! Don't wait until last minute because that might even be Japan time, which is earlier than you think. For those of you who are on the fence whether or not you should take it, just take it! We all fail the first time, most of the time. And for those of you who didn't, we're gonna have some words. So, hurry up! Go! Sign up! Go now! Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification if you like more. 今日もご視聴ありがとうございました. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'll leave the links to the books that I used below. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the comments. では、またね! Bye guys!